Senate report came out just a few weeks ago talking about, this all came from gain of function work that we were doing there. You said that a couple of years ago. You would have your whole career ruined. You would get totally banned from being able to speak to your fellow man. And this is why I think it's important to drudge up these issues, especially now with all of these tech oligarchs, with Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg getting front row seats with Elon Musk at the inauguration. I think it's important to bring up, because unless these individuals are held accountable, or at least if there's not a mass awakening to this, they're going to do it again.
Yes.
Because why wouldn't they? They were able to get everything that they wanted. They were able to get all this money, all this power, all this influence, and they got away with it.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world? I would like to welcome you back to the Real Talk with Zuby podcast. On today's episode, we've got on a returning guest, and this is Rudkowski. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. Good to see you once again. I think we did this exactly almost to the year, to the date. So always good to be on your show. Always good to see what kind of adventures you're up to, as, of course, things have been pretty wild and pretty crazy here, to say the least.
100%, man. How has everything been with you?
Insane. Absolutely crazy. Very tumultuous, very difficult, and very trying. Last year, 2024, was definitely the year of all the conspiracy theorists saying, "I told you so." And it was really a crazy, chaotic news cycle that I think a lot of us still haven't fully made sense of. I mean, if you look at everything that kind of unfolded with the drones, the assassinations, the social media censorship, the admissions of gain of function work, the Diddy scandals, all of that stuff was just like a perfect kind of crescendo of like, oh, everything we're told is an utter lie. And I think we really had a really big kind of revelation, a really big wake-up call for the people of America, but more importantly, the people of the world. It came very close towards full, all-out kind of civil war conditions here in the United States. I think people still forget just how close we came to this country no longer being a country, and everyone not just being divided, but being at odds with each other in a very serious kind of matter. Independent media was also getting hit left, right, and center. We got our own kind of bruises through 2024 that we're still dealing with financially, as we've kind of got inundated with a lot of legal troubles, IRS troubles, financial troubles that we're still trying to make sense of and trying to still kind of survive. So other than that, it was, I think, one of the most craziest years of my life.
Dude,
Yeah.
you bring up a brilliant point about people forgetting just how close things got literally an inch or two from breaking out into complete chaos. Of course, talking about the assassination attempt on Trump, which people have almost forgotten about. So much has happened and things move so quickly now that there can be a gigantic world-breaking story, and quite literally within a week or two, people are just on to the next thing.
It's like, what is the next thing? What's the next big scandal or controversy or expose? And it is kind of daunting, kind of taking a step back. I did a video where I did the top 10 most censored stories of 2024. And every single story that I was going into, I was like, these are like things that I used to talk about once a year, but they happen so frequently. I was having a hard time even trying to discern, okay, what's the top 10 things that we really need to kind of hone in on and remember that happened this year, as we had a lot of major disclosures that I think a lot of people still aren't really putting the pieces together. I think a lot of people are still kind of dazed and confused. I think a lot of us are also kind of dopamine warped and have been kind of put into this kind of control grid matrix where it's, okay, what's the next thing? What else is going to happen next, instead of actually pondering and thinking about, wait, what just really did happen and what were the larger ramifications of it, as we still don't have any kind of legitimate answers to who directly was trying to assassinate Donald Trump. We still don't have the direct answers to who made Secret Service stand down. We still don't have direct answers to a lot of the larger kind of looming questions that members of Congress tried to get answered, and they couldn't. They couldn't even come together with any kind of legitimate conclusion and paint a larger perspective of what really happened here. And that's why I'm really excited about the potential disclosures that we're going to be getting under the Trump administration, and some of the people within his administration that are going to be fighting for the kind of average common man person to really get a full understanding of it. We are seeing a little bit of a lull, a little bit of a quiet time, just maybe this week. But I think things are going to ratchet up and really, I think think we're in a quickening kind of event. We're in an event that's moving so fast, so rapidly that we can't still comprehend the larger ramifications of it.
This episode is brought to you by Sambrosa, the best way to get your 8 hours of rest. If, like me, you sometimes struggle with nighttime restlessness and allergies, then Sambrosa Night Syrup could be a game changer for you. Sambrosa contains a natural base of 7 organic herbs, honey, and a small amount of antihistamine. It's effective and soothing with no harsh chemicals, no high fructose corn syrup, and no artificial flavors or dyes. I've been using Sambrosa for several months now, and I can personally vouch for its effectiveness when it comes to improving my quality of rest at night. I also love the fact that they're a family-owned company who share my values of faith, freedom, and integrity. My listeners can try Sambrosa today and get 10% off by going to sambrosa.com/Zuby10. That's SAMBROSA.com/Zuby10 for 10% off your order. Try Sambrosa today and wake up ready to embrace life's opportunities. Go to sambrosa.com/Zuby10 and try it out. I was in Dubai when that assassination attempt happened. And it's always interesting being over there for a lot of reasons. Number one is because politics isn't really a thing there. It's not a democracy. There's no left, there's no right, there's no Democrats, Republicans. All of that stuff is just kind of DOA over there. But, of course, you get the news from the world. And also because of the time zone difference. So I'm 9 hours ahead of East Coast USA, 12 hours ahead of West Coast USA. So you're operating on the time shift is quite interesting. So you kind of wake up in the morning and you're seeing what's happened the previous day or night in the States. And I just remember waking up on that morning and opening social media and just being like, wait, what? Like, what on earth just happened? I'm seeing all these photos. I'm seeing like little video snippets. I'm seeing the reactions before I'm seeing what even happened.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of scrambling like, wait, what on earth?
Yeah, I think all of us are going to remember that moment, hopefully, if the algorithm hasn't hijacked our minds with the dopamine addiction that we're all addicted to. I remember being in an elevator with my team. We just finished a live stream with Chase Oliver, and I was there with Clint and Josie, the redheaded libertarian, and she just starts crying in the elevator. I'm like, oh, it's just a woman being a woman. And I'm like, whatever. But then I'm like, wait, this kind of feels a little bit different. What's really going on here? And then we kind of got the news, and it kind of did have a huge energetic shift. If you, I don't know if you've had the same kind of feeling, but once you're kind of in tune to this kind of larger lexicon and this larger kind of energetic, we're getting into the woo-woo stuff here. I don't know how far you want to go off into that, but there was a clear energy shift with just the turning of the head, a little bit of that turning of the head that you felt. It was a deep, emotional kind of energy. And then I remember I had to do a members only meetup at a cigar lounge right afterwards. And I'm like, do I even do this? Like, and then I just went anyway. Only a few of our members showed up, and we were just kind of sitting there, just kind of talking to each other about this kind of momentous, huge event that brought us so close towards utter just destruction of the United States. Because if he didn't shift his head, and if they did take his life, we would be living in a totally different world right now than we are. And we are extremely blessed not to be dealing with such levels of upheaval, such levels of chaos, such levels of devastation that would have been brought upon us if that assassination attempt was successful. And I think there's still so many looming questions about this person, how he was able to get away, how he was able to do this, pull this off, and how the whole story just kind of ended with him having his life taken, and us still kind of left here with the larger questions. Who helped him? Who was a part of this event? Who allowed the Secret Service to be so inept here? Who allowed them to stand down? Who allowed them to stop watching that building? Who allowed them to keep Trump on stage? Who allowed them to have Trump rise again when bullets were still flying? Those questions deserve to be answered, and I hope they get answered. If I'm Donald Trump, I want the answers to these questions as soon as possible. Now, whether he discloses it publicly or keeps it to himself, I don't know. But that's going to be, I think, a major moment that could bring up a lot of upheaval domestically within our system as well. That could be also very severe as well. So I'm paying close attention. I know a lot of people are like, "Hey, come out to the inauguration." I don't know if you're going to the inauguration or not, but I'm getting invited everywhere, and I'm like, I kind of want to sit this one out. Yeah. I kind of want to be in the background watching everything as it unfolds here, because I do think those first 100 days could be very bombastic, and I kind of hope they are. So we get a cleansing, we get more of a kind of reckoning, we get more of a kind of understanding of what really has been happening behind the scenes with all these kind of big, huge government organizations that clearly have abused their positions of power.
What do you think would have happened here in the States had he been killed?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think automatically a lot of the blame would have been shifted for Iran. We saw a lot of kind of gaslighting with Iran being blamed for the hacking attempts on Trump's campaign, on a lot of his top staff. And I think automatically someone like Nikki Haley would have came in there, and they would have implemented a lot of controls against people's Second Amendment rights. They would have said, listen, these are weapons of war. These are weapons that took out Donald Trump. We need to get rid of them. We need to confiscate them.
You think that would have come from the Republican side?
I think there are a lot of neocon Republicans that just don't believe in the Second Amendment, that just don't care about it. If you look at the way that, a lot of Republicans have acted within our own government, they're not the best protectors of the Second Amendment. Donald Trump himself, not the best protector of the Second Amendment. The only saving grace was the Supreme Court justices that he appointed that has allowed private firearm ownership to be actually protected within the U.S. government. Otherwise, a lot of his other comments about taking away guns first, due process later, were a little bit concerning. He made those comments with Pan Bondi, who's going to be his new attorney general as well. Him, doing the bump stock ban wasn't a good thing either. And I think truly Trump kind of realized and woke up during that moment about the kind of larger severity about what he was up against. I mean, if you look at everything that kind of happened to him, they were trying to stop him politically. They were trying to stop him through social media. They were trying to stop him through the legal system. They were trying to incarcerate him. They were, trying to put 700 years of jail on his head to potentially be serving, as we saw the United States get very close to a banana republic. So from my calculations, from my estimates, if the assassination was successful, Nikki Haley is the new front runner. She probably would be the president. We would be involved in a full-on bigger war within the Middle East, and there would be a larger kind of domestic war against people who believe in the Second Amendment domestically here in the United States that would have essentially destroyed free speech and would have destroyed the First Amendment and Second Amendment in this country, and it would have been just absolutely horrific, absolutely awful. There's no other way that I kind of would have foresee it. I would be curious to see how you would kind of see it from your outsider perspective, because I have my different understandings from everything that I'm seeing, but from an international perspective, I think that would be interesting to get your point of view on too.
Yeah, man, I don't have a super clear take on this. I don't have a super clear take. I mean, I remember when I saw, because I remember a moment where my heart jumped, because I saw that he'd been shot before I saw he'd survived. All right, so I just saw Donald Trump shot, like even, shot in, I think I saw one thing saying shot in the head, which is like technically correct, but you can imagine kind of like waking up, seeing that first thing in the morning, and your brain is like, oh my gosh, like did they? And then you scroll a little more and it's like, okay, he's survived.
He survived.
You see the video and you're kind of like, oh my gosh, like that would be it's like you're literally that close.
Yeah.
From just a whole new, it's like
new era.
Yeah, it's like a fork in the road, right? This would have just led to a completely different timeline. What that would look like, I know it would be bad. I don't know how bad, and I don't know how severe. I think it would be bad for the U.S. It would be bad for the world. It would be bad for the world on multiple levels. And I think one thing that strikes me is it would just be very dark, because I know presidents have been assassinated in the past. I know that wouldn't be the very first time it's happened, but I think as modern people living in 2024 at the time, we certainly like to think that in the Western world, in developed countries, that type of stuff doesn't happen anymore, right? That is the stuff of African dictatorships and Middle Eastern dictatorships and coups and these types of things, right? The rhetoric can get fiery and people throw out words and throw out terms, but if it had actually escalated to that point of all of this demonization going on, really starting out in 2015, the demonization of Trump, the demonization of his supporters, the media playing a role in that, and all of their rhetoric essentially framing him as Hitler, a fascist, a dictator, a threat to democracy, a threat to people's lives, their own rhetoric made it the case where if what they had been saying was true, that sort of attempt on his life almost becomes inevitable if you can brainwash certain people to believe that. And I think had that actually happened, I just think it would be very dark.
Yeah.
I think it would just sort of shock people just in the sense of, oh crap, like our country and our nations are not as stable and civilized as perhaps we like to think that they are.
Exactly. And I think people need to realize that is our current kind of state. And a lot of people take our state and the peace that we have for granted. And, covering particular war zones in my career and covering a lot of upheavals and protests and riots, people don't understand how lucky we are to have the peace that we have here. But the way that they were setting it up was very interesting, because you saw Joe Biden essentially call MAGA the number one threat to America,
Yes.
leading up to this larger event. And then you saw Joe Biden drop out as soon as the assassination attempt didn't work. And it seemed like, wait, they need a new plan here. They need something else to do here.
Did he drop out after it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was after. Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot the timeline.
Yeah, he dropped out after the attempted assassination. I could double check that, but it made sense that holy cow, we couldn't stop this man. And then we had the censorship that happened on Facebook. Then we had the censorship that happened on Google of the actual events, of the actual photos, of the actual kind of relevancy to this, as the corporate media was trying to play this off like Trump tripped and fell. The corporate media still, in this moment where they almost took his life, they were still running negative headlines about him. Overwhelmingly, when this guy almost lost his life for the political ideas that he was standing behind, and you're still going to vilify him and call him all these other names and make up all this other hatred and bigotry around him for what? So I think we were very close to what the economic hitman describes as the kind of larger coup d'etat that we have seen in a lot of these kind of Latin American countries, because they have the playbook. They know how this works. They go to the leaders, they try to buy them off, they try to compromise them, they try to make deals, and when that doesn't work, they send in the hit squads and they take them out. And I think, Trump, say what you may about him, he definitely did represent a larger threat to a lot of those very powerful people, a lot of those powerful people that are on the Epstein client list, a lot of those people that have committed horrible actions and sins that are too graphic to even mention here on this particular show. But we're talking about absolutely evil, ruthless people that have done a lot of really ruthless, evil things in order to get where they are right now. So we have to understand that that's what we're dealing with. That's the situation that we are confronted with here. And that's a reality that, a lot of us conveniently kind of put away. And I'm here like, hey, I want to remind you guys, for the 20 years that I've been doing this, especially with my long history of understanding and working with a lot of people affected by 9/11. Once you start looking into like 9/11, you start looking into a lot of this other type of deeper, darker, secretive conspiracy stuff, you start to realize, holy cow, there's no kind of respect or dignity for human life by a lot of these central controllers. And a lot of this is done through our ignorance and acquiescence. And this is why I always teach people to be the best version of themselves and not to be kind of hoodwinked and captured by these larger institutions that, of course, are always trying to mind control, mind warp them, and subjugate them as best as they can.
Yeah. At the same time, given that the attempt failed, thank God, I do think that the temperature did come down. I think that there's something about what happened and the way he even responded to it that created a lot of empathy and humanization, in fact. So for all these people who for the past, at that point, let's say 7 to 8 years have been trying to frame this individual and his followers as some, second coming of Hitler or he's going to genocide, whatever nonsense they're saying. I think that narrative is dead now. Whether or not somebody likes Donald Trump or they don't, firstly, a lot more people like him now than did 8 years ago, and they're willing to publicly say that. But I think even the people who didn't and maybe still don't like him, there is something in the response. There's something about it that just speaks, I think, to people like at the core as a human being. Like, unless you are a true evil scumbag, who, and I know there were a handful of these, and some of them went viral, right? People who saw that and are, saying things about they're upset that the person missed or that they thought it would be justified. Like in moments like that, people just expose themselves. It's just like, all right, if that's what you think, I'm not a Joe Biden fan. I'm not a Kamala Harris. I'm not a fan. There's many politicians I'm not a fan of, but the idea that, it would be good or that I'd celebrate or something if one of them were to, get severely sick or be assassinated, like that's completely insane, right? All the partisan stuff should switch off in you, and it should just become a human thing. And I think that happened for a lot of people. And I think that fork in the road, instead of going to a potential some form of civil war, let's say, I think it actually led to something that is going to end up being more unifying long term. I'm already seeing that happening just in the last couple of months as we record this podcast. By the time the podcast comes out, Trump would have taken office. As we record it, he hasn't just yet. And just the coalition that is building around him, both within and outside of the administration, and the way people are reacting to it, I just think we're in a totally different place to where we were. If you think of where we were 3 years ago, Luke, early 2021, horrible, horrible time. The whole middle of the pandemic situation and all the division that came with that. If you think even further back, a couple of years before that, and it was just that 2016 period and the level of hostility in the media, the demonization of anybody remotely conservative or right-leaning or Trump voting. And now you're looking at things now and you've got, I don't know, everyone from, obviously Elon Musk has totally switched. But even, in the world of all these tech people, Zuckerberg is, doing his reframing. Jeff Bezos has done a shift. You've had even these celebrities and some of these actors. It's just, the rhetoric has changed so much.
Yeah.
It's changed massively.
Yeah, Zuckerberg and Bezos, they're doing their little dance. Look at me, I'm MAGA. And I'm like, you son of a gun. I can't curse here probably, but you little pathetic wannabe son of a fair weather friend. I'll just say it like that. As the damage that they've done can't be quantified. Truly, the way that they hurt the discourse, the censorship that they installed, the levels of just destruction of civility that they have created literally brought us on the brink of a full all-out kind of civil war here, which was extremely dangerous, which I've been warning about for 15 plus years. I'm like, hey, there's a larger divide and conquer agenda out here. And, the point you made specifically with some people kind of, celebrating this assassination attempt, I looked it up. The assassination attempt was on July 13th, and then Joe Biden resigned July 21st of 2024. So just only a few days afterwards, he's like, I'm out. Or maybe it wasn't even him as that letter that he kind of released. Maybe someone else did it, as of course he now kind of regrets dropping out and says that he could have won against Trump. I don't think so. With the momentum that shifted, you felt this kind of shift energetically, but some people were so far lost in the hatred that they were like, man, I wish that would have, they don't know what they're asking for. They're stuck in such negativity, in such bad thought loops. But why are they there? They're there because of Zuckerberg. They're there because of all these tech oligarchs that have created an algorithm that just kept feeding them right-wingers bad, right-wingers evil. These people are inhumane. These people are absolutely ruthless. These people are your number one enemy. It's all these white men that are evil on this world. And it's like, okay, now Zuckerberg doing his little shuck and jive dance here. I'm like, you mother trucker, you have no. I know. You do not have any credence here. You do not have any respect here. There needs to be, if there's actual, if Mark Zuckerberg takes the money that he spent with Zuckerbucks to get Joe Biden elected, which he did, and he gives it to maybe right-wing causes or conservative causes or pro-life causes or alternative media causes, maybe then, maybe if he offers restitution, but even then, and I'm like, no, you have no idea what you brought us close to and how dangerous the world was because of your recklessness, censorship that stopped people from being able to talk to each other and work out our differences. That's the best way to deal with a lot of this stuff. Is like, hey, this is my opinion, this is yours. Let's see which idea is better. Let the best idea win in a larger ideological battle. We were denied that for so long, and I'm still worried, especially with the latest kind of algorithm changes made by Musk recently, which I'm not the biggest fan of, that we could be very easily reverted to that, as social media is a form of mind control, in my opinion. And I think a lot of us have been brought to a very dangerous situation in 2024. I would say it de-escalated, but I think that threat is still there, especially now with artificial intelligence, especially now with the larger kind of technological advancements that we're seeing that are going to be major disruptors to our lives and to our livelihoods and to the larger kind of economic world order that we're living under.
It's so interesting what you say there, because, you know, the question that always springs up in my mind is, I hear all of that, but I'm like, how much onus do we put on the individual, though? As people who believe in individual liberty and I assume free will and individual responsibility and accountability, it's like we all are subject to the same algorithms and propaganda and advertising and media campaigns and all that stuff, yet we are able to not allow that to manipulate us to hate our neighbor. And so sometimes I feel like putting all the blame, I almost feel like you're giving like Zuckerberg too much credit, right? It's like, if you're such an NPC that you're going to just absorb all of this stuff, and then that's going to cause you, I felt the same during the whole scamdemic era, right? If the TV can convince you to turn against your mother, your father, your brother, your son, your best friend of 15 years because they have a different viewpoint on you on masks or on mandates or on the shot or something, I'm like, that's on you, bro. Like, if you're an adult, like, we all got hit with the same garbage and we didn't all behave like that. So yeah, the propagandist, we saw this from the Nuremberg trials, right? The propagandist is also culpable, but sometimes I wonder if we're kind of like denying some agency and accountability there when we put all the blame on these big tech oligarchs.
Yeah. I would disagree with you.
Okay.
Because I do believe the levels of control that these people have is vast, is severe. And I would even argue that Zuckerberg has created a situation that led to tremendous human suffering and tremendous human life loss. If you look at what happened in 2020 and 2021, especially with, you know, the procedure.
Bang, bang.
That they were, you know, forcing and manipulating people to have on. People didn't have informed consent, and informed consent was banned. It was demonetized. It was downranked in the algorithm. So I do believe, yes, you are in charge of yourself, and you should always look for alternative, independent information and always get to two sources of information. But they made it virtually impossible to do it for the majority of the general public. They made it impossible for us to be able to screen, to be able to find out exactly what's going on here. The doctors, the medical professionals that came out and tried to protect human life, they lost their licenses. They were, and then they went online and they were trying to warn people. They were shadow banned. They were deleted. Entire news organizations lost their livelihoods. These are essentially tech oligarchs that had so much power, especially then, that the only reason we went along with 2 weeks to slow the spread, the only reason people went along with the lockdowns was because they were told, you have to do this. Yeah. Look at the people falling down in China and collapsing. You know, look at all these people. Look at grandma. Grandma's going to be definitely severely affected here. So this larger destruction of the narrative of the conversation created a scenario where people locked themselves inside of their own home, and that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the censorship, if it wasn't for Zuckerberg doing what the government told them to do. He is culpable here. He says, hey, they were mean to us.
What do you think would have happened if he didn't? What do you think they would have done to him?
Probably
because I don't think he's in an envious position.
No, and that's the argument that I was making a couple months ago. He understands that he kind of needs to support Trump because Trump's the only one that's going to give him maybe some autonomy here. But Trump also had to threaten him with jail. Like, Trump came out and said, Zuckerberg, if you interfere in this election, 2024, I'm going to throw you in jail. Yeah. And you saw him very quickly shape up very closely, get very close to those UFC guys and UFC fans. And now Dana White's a part of his larger kind of program here. I have a lot of positive things to say about Dana White, because when you look at Dana White and his record with the sickness, he actually was the one that helped open up the world and stop the lockdowns. He's the one that actually conducted live sporting events when everyone told him he was going to kill everyone because of it.
Yes.
So I have a lot of tremendous respects for Dana White and the state of Florida and all the political leadership here that actually made a big stand here, because I think truly if it wasn't for those individuals, people wouldn't be able to see like, hey, they're okay. These UFC fighters aren't dropping dead. The people in Florida that overwhelmingly are made up of elderly people. It's not a whole freaking genocide like the corporate media told us it was going to be. And then people are like, wait, maybe they're not telling us the truth here. So the onus is on the individual. Absolutely agree with that. Personal responsibility all the way. But they curated a situation where every step of the way here, they dominated the conversation and they prevented anyone from being able to understand anything else but their kind of mind control language that they were utilizing, implementing against the average person, that essentially screwed us over dramatically. And if there was enough people that would have said, hey, no, this is crazy. Like, why are we closing down mom and pop stores but allowing Walmart to be open? This doesn't make any sense. Why are police officers breaking down the door to this poor woman's business and destroying her livelihood? Why are we arresting people for walking on the beach? This doesn't make any sense. This is tyranny. They were only able to have that tyranny because there was no one able to speak out against it. So I think 2020 and 2021 represent that these individuals had vast amounts of power. They exercised it as much as they could. And they took away a lot of our liberties, a lot of our financial futures, a lot of our wealth.
I think it's important to jump in and remind people that this was global. In 2022, I went to Australia to do a couple of events just after they'd finally opened back up. And man, people there had been freaking traumatized all across Europe, in parts of the Middle East and Asia, like the lockdowns and all of the mandates and stuff. It was insane. It wasn't just the UK or just the US or just Canada or whatever. It was so global. With that said, do you know what to this date always makes me simultaneously laugh, but also be angry about that whole time? Is people still act like the whole continent of Africa doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a whole continent of over 50 countries that barely had lockdowns, that I believe to this day has an under 10% vax rate.
Even lower than that.
Didn't do masks. And keep in mind, this is the poorest continent. The infrastructure and the hospitals, and all, like, I'll be honest with you. When all of this stuff kicked off, man, 5 years ago now, it's crazy. When I first heard of this stuff, like February 2020, one of my thoughts, I remember specifically thinking this, was, if this is as bad as they're saying it is, I am concerned for the continent of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Because if this is truly, I'm skeptical about the claims, and I'm not buying into the early propaganda videos of people falling on the street, whatever. But if I'm wrong and this is truly bad, this is going to
wreak havoc on it.
It's going to wreak havoc on that continent. And that was like the least affected place, despite having the least mandates. Nobody cared. Like, people were kind of looking around like, okay, like, let's just get back to life. And to this day, even in independent media, let alone mainstream media, like, people don't really like talk about that and acknowledge it. People talk about Sweden, which is a small country of like, I don't know, 10 million people. But I'm like, there's a continent of over 1 billion people here. Why?
Why are they totally fine? Like, why are they totally unaffected?
Are there no questions here? Isn't anyone just going, wait, hang on.
Yeah.
Shouldn't this look really different? And it's like that conversation isn't even had.
Yeah, we're going to have a winter of severe illness and death. Not in Africa.
For you and your families.
As, of course, a lot of people, there's different ways that we could kind of extrapolate this. Some people would say that there could be a kind of gene-specific kind of bioweapon program here that was potentially carried out here. But when you look at Africa, and I traveled a little bit to Africa, I did on the ground reporting in Mogadishu, Somalia. I did Kenya. I did Zimbabwe. And you're right. When you're in Africa, you kind of look around and you're like, holy cow! If there actually is a larger kind of sickness out there that is spreading everywhere, that's going to devastate people, these people don't stand a chance against fighting it, especially in places like, Somalia, especially in places like Nairobi. They do not stand a chance with dealing with this. But yet, their reproduction rates through the roof, still dramatically. Their cancer rates, normal. But the Western world, especially the world that implemented a lot of the procedures against it, their reproduction rates down more than ever. Their cancer rates up more than ever. And again, it's correlation, doesn't mean there's causation here. But no, you make an excellent point here, as of course, this is what a lot of us were kind of saying. I was saying this. I was like, what's happening in Haiti with this? What's happening with all these other countries that are not implementing a lot of these restrictions, lockdowns, and initiatives that we are? And why aren't we doing more kind of reporting on this? Sweden also was the kind of canary in the coal mine. Everyone was like, they're just all going to die in Sweden.
Yeah.
They didn't.
And I remember this well because obviously I'm in the UK, so Sweden's not very far away. And the UK initially was going to follow the same path as Sweden. Initially, Boris Johnson didn't want to do the lockdowns and all of the mandates and stuff. What was actually the switching point in the UK was him, the prime minister at the time, being hospitalized. And then he came out singing a totally different tune. Initially, UK was going to take the Sweden route. And I personally believe, don't have a time machine. I think if the UK had taken that route, I don't think there would have been this horrible devastation beyond what was witnessed. I think people would have mostly carried on as usual. I think the economic damage and the psychological damage and all the other damage that came from the reaction to the thing, I think all of that would have been avoided.
Yeah, but it was damage to us. But it was a redistribution to some of the most powerful entities and organizations in the Western world. A lot of these internationalists, a lot of these globalists, a lot of these tech oligarchs, they made crazy amounts of money. The billionaires became that much richer during this particular time. It wasn't us just being economically wrecked. It was a transfer of wealth of all of us going to Amazon, all of us going to Netflix, all of us going to Facebook and becoming more reliant and hooked on their tech. And their tech was absolutely weaponized against us because, if we actually had real, legitimate, honest conversations, we would be looking at Africa. We were looking at Africa during those particular days, but then also we were censored a lot significantly for even having those conversations. And having that kind of limited here really, really did create a lot of damage. So that's why I would argue Mark Zuckerberg had a lot of power and a lot of influence. And he's just the figurehead. There's other people, of course, behind him, other institutions, other organizations calling the shots here. But truly, it wasn't that they just made a problem worse. I think there was larger initiatives that created this problem, and we know that through Senate reports. The Senate report came out just a few weeks ago talking about, this all came from gain-of-function work that we were doing there. You said that a couple of years ago. You would have your whole career ruined. You would get totally banned from being able to speak to your fellow man. And this is why I think it's important to drudge up these issues, especially now with all of these tech oligarchs, with Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg getting front row seats with Elon Musk at the inauguration. I think it's important to bring up because unless these individuals are held accountable, or at least if there's not a mass awakening to this, they're going to do it again.
Yes.
Because why wouldn't they? They were able to get everything that they wanted. They were able to get all this money, all this power, all this influence, and they got away with it. So this is why people are saying Fauci might get pardoned. I hope Fauci gets, prosecuted for the lies he told to Congress. I hope he gets held responsible, as well as all these other larger players that have created the problem. I believe deliberately released this problem and then benefited off of this problem in this kind of problem, reaction, solution dialectic in this larger kind of Q bono, kind of looking back at it now saying, wait, hold on, what really happened here? We were all wrecked, but all these other guys, they got a lot from us. And I think truly having the hindsight, especially in this kind of day and age where everything is just so quick, everything just keeps changing so fast, the people are just so dopamine warped that it's worth looking back on so we don't repeat the same mistakes that were made before.
100%. How come we didn't fall for it?
For the beginning, I think there was a lot of people like myself and Mike Cernovich, Tucker Carlson, that were a little bit confused. The way that they pulled this off is really interesting because in the beginning they're like releasing all these videos online of all these like Chinese people collapsing, and then the government came in, Fauci came in, it's like, don't wear a mask. Go out there to the Chinese Day Parade. And it's like, wait, hold on. Something's going on here, especially with this like wet market story. Doesn't add up here. There's this laboratory. Because I've been warning about.
It's like a pangolin.
Yeah. It's like, someone just shoved the pangolin and bat down their pie hole. And then bada bing, bada boom, we got the sickness. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't add up at all. And I remember thinking, day one, they deliberately released a bioweapon. I didn't know how severe. I took some precautions, and I told other people, until we find out what's really going on here, we should take some precautions. I had more of the cautionary route here. And then once they started to say BLM riots were stopping the spread, but anti-lockdown riots were spreading the spread and killing grandma, I was like, no, hold on here. I never advocated, looking back at it, I never advocated for government to do anything, and I'm very proud of that. I did tell people to be personally responsible and to be cautious because literally there was a video that I released on YouTube with myself and David Icke that YouTube just took down a couple weeks ago. They deleted it from my channel without even asking me, permission to do so. But it was a conversation with me and him talking about specifically bioweapons being released, lockdowns being initiated, procedures being pushed and forced on people.
What a weird time. And I understand fully why most people don't want to discuss it, because obviously most people were complicit in various ways. And it's rather shameful. And I'm sure a lot of people feel kind of silly and goofy and whatever in hindsight. But as you say, I think it's important to keep flashing these reminders to people. Number one, to make sure it doesn't happen again. And number two, maybe this should be number one, is there still hasn't been any accountability. There's been no accountability in any country as far as I'm aware. Not just here in the States, same thing in the UK, same crap Canada, every Western European country, Central European countries, in China itself, in all these different nations, the amount of damage that's been done to billions of people. And it's just like, okay, let's just move on. And
let's move on to the next thing. Let's move on to, I forgot what it was, but it was BLM. BLM that took over the conversation.
No, I remember what it was that ended all the COVID stuff. I remember precisely. It was when Putin invaded Ukraine.
Yep, that was the next thing.
That day, all of the COVID hysteria and you need 4 masks and you need to get your 8th booster, all of that just stopped.
Yep.
All of it just stopped, and it just all shifted. Now it's, Ukraine flags and bio, the, hashtag get the vaccine is gone. Masks and profile photos are gone. Now
Ukraine flag.
Even BLM is gone.
Yep.
Now it's just Ukraine. Now it's, Ghost of Kiev and all these all these other narratives that immediately Skull Island. I don't like all these narratives that start coming out. We've truly lived through like a bonkers last couple of years, and so much has happened so quickly that people just forget. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happened which I'm sure I have forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, last year, Germany even investigated the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline, and they found that it was the Ukrainians that were guilty of it. And allegedly, Volodymyr Zelensky came out and said that he tried to stop it before it actually happened, and then he was not able to do so. But the German government came out and said, the Ukrainians actually created one of the worst ecological disasters in recent human history, blowing up an entire gas pipeline, emitting so much emissions into the air. And all the leftoids and all the woke people and all the environmentalists just shut up about it. And
I didn't
were
even know
super
that.
quiet about it.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, but there was an official investigation. Germany came out saying, yes, we're looking for this person. This person's on the run. This person was working for the Ukrainian government, probably working with the CIA. And they talked about how he escaped into Poland, and from Poland, how he went back somewhere else, and they lost track of him, and they can't find him, and they're still looking for him. And they put out a larger arrest warrants for this person that put on a scuba suit suit and then blew up this Nord Stream pipeline, which was a huge, major deal and a larger escalation that has created a very desperate situation for the people of Europe that have to deal with now record high energy prices. Germany, I mean, is just an absolute failed state. There's going to be local elections that are going to be happening there that Elon Musk is somewhat getting involved in, speaking about it. And now the German government is talking about investigating Elon Musk, going after him, stopping him. If you remember, they made him target number 2. This is how dark the corporate media was. Right after Trump's assassination, I think it was Der Spiegel that came out and said target number 2 with Elon Musk on the front page of it.
Oh, I think I saw that.
Which just highlights this larger kind of back and forth escalatory situation that we're dealing with, when in reality, the West has kind of screwed over Germany significantly with its energy infrastructure. The German government is also getting rid of nuclear reactors. I mean, what they're doing in Germany is just so mind-boggling, especially with all their kind of open immigration policies that have wreaked havoc on the local population there. That place is just absolutely wrecked, absolutely destroyed. And to me, it's just wild to see all these larger developments, and then people just kind of forget and then move on to the next thing.
You've asked my thoughts about some of the things happening in the U.S. from a foreign perspective. What are your thoughts on some of the things happening in UK and Europe?
It's kind of sad. I mean, having people that are being arrested for political thoughts and expressions just for putting things on social media is a crime against humanity. I mean, people should have the right to voice whatever political opinion they want, whether you disagree with it, whether it's offensive or not. And to have these like control grid ninny police officers that go after people. I mean, there's a famous video of this lesbian butch-looking cop going after an autistic 14-year-old because the autistic 14-year-old made fun of her looks.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is where your police resources are going to be spent, as there's grooming gangs that we've been warning about for many years now. As there's police officers who are saying, yeah, we're not going to investigate these grooming gangs because we're worried about potential backlash. We're not going to investigate Prince Andrew either, that guy and all the things he has done with Epstein. We're not going to look into any of that. But you made a post on social media. We're going to show up to your home. We're going to arrest you. We're going to release criminals from jail. We're going to put you in that jail. So having something like that really does highlight how it's a place that is absolutely far gone. And it's sad because I know a lot of great people from the United Kingdom. But they've been absolutely kind of ridiculed and devastated by the state there that is essentially their overlord, that is essentially their controller, that is essentially saying, I could control what you even think about. And that's dangerous. When a government says, we're going to make sure that you can't even express certain ideas, because if we do, we're going to throw you in jail. That's a society that I don't want to live in. And I wouldn't want anyone living under those kind of oppressive rules and arbitrary regulations that the government just gets to make up, saying, this right now is not acceptable. You go to jail. It's sickening. It's absolutely crazy. I remember being in the United Kingdom 10 years ago, and I was interviewing people. I was like, do you wish you had the First Amendment? And there was this one gentleman that I was like, I sure wish I did. I went to jail for accidentally calling... we're on YouTube again.
I'm so curious to know what he said.
He called someone a bloke.
Okay.
Who was a bloke.
Okay.
But was trying to be a female.
Got it.
Yes. But biologically a bloke.
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Okay.
And I was randomly interviewing people about the First Amendment, and this guy's like, yeah, man, you don't know about, this is my case here, randomly. So these cases happen a lot, and they happen to a lot of people.
Thousands.
And, thousands of offenses for
and
political speech is
And
sick.
in the UK, they have a category below a crime called a non-crime hate incident.
Wow. Yeah,
Which
that
also
doesn't surprise me.
You haven't heard of that?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the UK, you have crimes, you have hate crimes, and then you have non-crime hate incidents.
What does that even mean?
Which also go on your record. So it's like you didn't commit a crime, but you were close, mate.
Wow.
And this is going on your record anyway.
Pre-crime.
Yeah, pre-crime.
Oh, that's absolutely insane. I don't know how people do it. Because if I'm there, I would want to say the most offensive things. Not because I agree with them, not because I actually believe in them, but because it's like, wait, you're really that weak? You're really that pathetic? You're really that insecure that you can't have people joke around and have ideas. You know, I think it really does diminish the human spirit to be able to say, you can't say this, you can't do this, you can't fully live your life in total freedom. Now, of course, you could always have consequences for your particular actions, but with the larger kind of purview, with the larger kind of perspective here, humanity thrives off of liberty, off of freedom, off of being able to make our own kind of choices and decisions. And sadly, our decisions and choices are being withered down, and they're being denied to us with the lack of access of information. That's why free speech is so essential. It's more important than the Second Amendment. Free speech is key to allow a society to progress, to grow, and to make the right decisions for themselves on an individual one-on-one basis. And this is why I'm not willing to give any grace to Zuckerberg. I'm not, until he fixes his wrongs, until there's restitution, until the people that he censored, the people that he destroyed, the people that he wrecked financially, he comes to personally and says, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to give you restitution, actually. I'm going to actually either promote you, put you on the front page. I'm going to give you some kind of, allowance. I'm going to try to make my wrongs right. And until he does that, I'm not going to trust him. I'm not going to believe him. And I don't think anyone else should.
I feel like Google are getting away with too much here.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Well, Zuckerberg is just the easy target.
Zuck is catching a lot here, and I'm like, man, the people at Google and YouTube,
like, they're worse. They're worse. They're way worse. But Zuckerberg is the easy target.
Do you know what? Like,
because he's the one capitulating. He's the one kind of bowing down. He's the one kind of going forward, be like, I'm different, guys. Trust us. YouTube hasn't really done that.
Yeah.
So that's why. He's an easy kind of punching bag here.
Yeah. He's a face. Do you know the one thing that I will say, I respect about him, and I'm not a fan. I mean, like, I don't even want to really talk about the individual too much per se, but like, Facebook, Meta, it's been through all these different incarnations. I've been on Facebook myself for over 20 years. I was one of the first people on Facebook back in 2004.
When you needed to be in college and you needed a college email. That was me.
Specific colleges too.
Yeah.
And so I respect that he does put his head up over the parapet. The fact that he is even willing to go on a Joe Rogan and get grilled, because he doesn't have to. He could totally just hide in the shadows. Like, Anthony Fauci's not going on JRE. If Fauci went on JRE, I still would not like the man at all, but I'd be like, oh, okay, at least he's willing to step into the lion's den a bit and get grilled. Well, and
the Joe Rogan show isn't the lion's den, though. Joe Rogan's very easy. Dr. Hotez went there and then talked about his like fast food diet that he loved as a medical health professional.
Kamala wouldn't even go on Rogan.
But I think Zuckerberg needs to.
Yeah,
I think he needs to save face.
Yeah,
I think he needs to, if he's going to survive, because you see what happened to Elon with the Biden administration. You saw how they went after him. He knows Trump's pissed at what happened in 2020. Trump's not going to forget what happened in 2020. And Zuckerberg could face the same kind of investigations. He could face the same kind of scrutinies. He could face the same kind of investigations. And I think he really now is trying to save face. I think he does need to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Do you know what I think about that guy? Like, I sometimes I just think, like, man, this guy has got so. Like, I think when he started Facebook, I genuinely think he was just like a college kid, smart college kid with some interesting ideas who just wanted to make a social network. I don't think he could have potentially foreseen
him being a billionaire.
Well, having 3 to 4 billion people around, like, let's say half the world's adult population using your products, whether that is Facebook or WhatsApp. Facebook itself is over 3 billion monthly users. And then now you add to that Instagram, you add WhatsApp or so on. And every nation, you have people on from 200 different countries. Every country has its own laws and rules around free speech and government pressure. And now you've got the power where elections can swing in this way and swing in that way. Like, I'm just like, dude, that is not I think some people would look at someone like Mark Zuckerberg and be like, oh, wow, he's one of the richest men in the world, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, I would not want to be that guy.
That's a lot of stress.
I would not want to be running a platform where people from Pakistan to Egypt to the USA to the UK to Germany to Australia are all on there, as are the politicians, as are the media figures, and you're getting pressure from the government in Pakistan is giving you directives. The government in Saudi Arabia is giving you like everyone. And then you have people in the States who are like, it should just be all free speech. And I'm like, guys, you're not the only nation with users on these platforms. So as much as I'm pro free speech, I actually recognize, having a more global perspective, that they can't simply, and it's not just about the advertisers. It's also just like, based on each country's laws, you can't just totally make it a free-for-all.
Yep.
If you do that, you're going to fall foul of different jurisdictions.
And a lot of other places don't have free speech like we do here in America.
Only the USA does, as far as I'm aware. I don't think any other nation has an equivalent of the First Amendment. Whether you are in a European countries have hate speech laws.
Mm-hmm.
Middle Eastern countries have blasphemy and hate speech laws. Places like India, Pakistan, China, like the most populous, people forget that only 1/8 of the world's population lives in the West.
Exactly.
Like the West is the anomaly. And even most of the West doesn't have true free speech. We have it as an idea and a concept, but on the laws, like if you think you can be in the UK or Germany or France or Italy and you can just say totally whatever you want, you can't. You will fall foul. Different nations have different things that they're okay and not okay with. There's stuff that I can say in the UAE that would get me in trouble in the UK and vice versa. Right. But I know what the bounds are in each place.
Yep. And the population of the West is going down dramatically as well. And this is why I think we really have to, take a step back and appreciate the freedoms that we have here, the liberties that we have here. I traveled all around the world in my 20s, and I kind of realized, say what you may about the West and specifically America, but it is one of the least racist, one of the most freest, one of the most amazing places on earth to live in.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we take for granted, people just don't have in other places around the world. And that's why when we had the attempted Trump assassination, we came very close to losing all of that. And I think that's why it matters. I think the conversation matters. I hope we find out the true culprit. I think when we do, it's going to lead to a larger upheaval of society. And I think people are going to be very shocked and surprised to see the larger kind of conspiracy that is trying to unfold within the powers of government that truly almost had their way if it wasn't for just that little side action. Man, people don't understand how lucky we are, how blessed we are. And, even though I'm dealing with like financial ruin here, I'm still very happy I'm here. I'm very happy I'm alive. I'm very happy I still get this opportunity. They haven't taken stuff away from me yet, but I'm happy I'm here. And I wouldn't be anywhere else in the world other than the free state of Florida in the United States of America that hopefully has a new kind of renaissance under this kind of future Trump administration that hopefully puts in check a lot of those bad actors that brought us on the brink of total destruction and collapse.
What are your predictions for this upcoming administration?
It's going to be very telling, specifically with the first day. I want to see the executive orders. I want to see the kind of directives. I want to see what he does day one. That's going to be very telling of where this administration is going to be going, as well as his Davos speech. So right after the inauguration, I think he has a day or two where he's in Washington, D.C., and then he heads over to the World Economic Forum, a meeting. His address there is either going to be trying to placate them or to address them or to put them in check. I think that message is going to set the groundwork because you never know with Trump. Trump's a deal maker. Yeah. You don't know what kind of deals he made. You don't know how things are going to look. But if I'm him and I just had people try to take my life because of the political ideas that I have, I'm going to try to implement those ideas more than ever. And I think, and I would hope, he implements everything that he has promised to implement. And I could be wrong. I hope I'm not. We'll watch this when the record speaks for itself. But truly, the larger kind of calamity that we almost face, I think he understands. And I think he understands just how close to the brink we came of losing it all and how we really need to preserve it more than ever. And I think he really should initiate America First policies that protect us, that take care of us, and that propel us forward in a way where we don't have to deal with the same kind of predators in our society that have lied to us, screwed us over, and have hurt us so much like they did in the last few years.
Real talk, man. I hope it happens. I'm not American, but I'm very pro-America, and I want to see this country do well.
But it matters. I mean, look what happened in Canada. Look what's happening with the conversation in the United Kingdom and Germany. A lot of people are like, maybe the conservatives, maybe the people who don't want government in our lives, maybe they're talking some common sense here. Maybe they're worth listening to. Maybe it's worth implementing larger ideas that could actually help us and make us work for ourselves rather than give everything, including our power, our money, and our authority, to these central controllers that clearly don't give a damn about us.
So, on that final point of bigotry, close out the conversation. Luke, always good to chat to you, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. We're going to do our podcast soon. I'm excited for that. I'm going to be working my butt off because I have to, or else I go to jail. All on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/wearechange. Check it out. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience and to speak to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, man.